Philadelphia is truly the place to be this summer. So add the Match Room to your list. It's a limited time sports lounge experience at Four Seasons Hotel Philadelphia, open now through July 19th. Located on the 59th floor, the space has been designed for watching international soccer matches. There's elevated food and drink options, including dishes you can share, and the best views of the city. Plan your visit now. Make those reservations on fourseasons.com/Philadelphia/dining and experience the Match Room before it's gone.
Hi, I'm David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, a podcast network that includes this show you're listening to, and also 12 other CityCasts in 12 other cities. And each one knows their city as well as your local team knows yours. So isn't it time we connected them? Don't you want to know how they're tackling their bike lane problems and housing challenges and sidewalk dog poop crises? That's why I'm hosting a new podcast called Your City Could Be Better. Because it could be. Every week, I'll chat with a different host in our CityCast network about what their cities are doing right and wrong, the weird things they're trying, and the surprising successes, so that we can all learn how to make our cities a little bit better. Listen to Your City Could Be Better on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Is 2026 the safest year in Philly's history? If you look at homicide rates, it just might be. In 2025, we saw the fewest number of homicides since the 1960s. And through the first half of this year, the murder rate is down 30% from even that historic low. What's going on here? And what story are these numbers telling us about crime in the city? And do people really feel safe? We have the perfect person to help answer some of these questions. Mensah Dean, staff writer from the gun violence reporting newsroom, The Trace. It's Monday, June 29th. I'm Trenae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. Mensah, glad to have you back on the show. We've been talking about crime rates and crime stats here on the podcast, and there's a lot of numbers to look at. Before we get into all those details, I just kind of want to know, listen, I remember there was a time living in Philly, and Philly was known as Philadelphia because of the high crime rates. But overall, things have been changing. It looks like things are getting and reaching historic lows in terms of our homicide rate. So would you say overall that Philly is safer than it's been in years past?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. And I would say, yeah, we're at a place in Philadelphia where we haven't been in literally some 60 years when it comes to shootings and homicides. We finished 2025 with the fewest number of homicides since the mid-1960s. And the trend, started during the pandemic, and it's been going in the right direction ever since. I mean, we finished last year with 222 homicides, and that is 60% fewer homicides than we had at the height of the gun violence crisis in 2021, when there were 562 homicides.
Which is like a fraction of that number, yeah.
Yeah, from 562 down to 222. And as we speak, we've had, 73 homicides so far this year. Mm-hmm. Compared to last year at this time, there was 105. It's amazing what has happened here. Now, we are part of the national story. Gun violence is down in most parts of the country, not all parts, but in most big cities that look similar to us. Gun violence is down.
So would you say that's something that there's like nothing really special happening in Philly, or is Philly possibly doing something unique?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, nationally, shootings are down. And so we are part of that larger picture. But our rate of improvement is better than most cities, most big cities. we've seen a greater improvement in homicides and non-fatal shootings, fewer of them, that is. So whether it's something that Philly is doing or not, it is hard to say. You know, the people I speak to in the city government, they don't, and also outside of city government, in academics, no one quite knows why the shootings have decreased. Like I said, I believe it's just one of those things that, what goes up must come down. But Philadelphia has done a number of things to its credit to tackle this pernicious gun violence problem. Beyond the things that they've done, though, let me just say this. When you have less shootings, homicide detectives have more time to investigate. And so that's helped them immensely. The fact that, you're not having 400, 500, shootings and over 1,000 non-fatal shootings. These detectives have more time to connect the dots in the cases that they do have and close those cases with arrest. In addition, the city has invested heavily in video surveillance. Their video cameras system program started in 2012 or so. And now there are over 7,000 real-time cameras throughout the city.
So in some ways, technology has helped
immensely.
Yeah.
Their forensics, they've been putting more money into forensics, and they're beefing up the staff so that they can process more guns. They process over 6,000 crime guns every year, over 40,000 fired cartridge casings every year. They added at least 6 new people in the forensics lab to help to do more work and then more shifts.
Are there more guns off the streets?
I haven't looked at the gun numbers, the confiscation numbers recently, so I don't want to tell you. I would assume there are. That's the trend. That's what's been going on. They've been out there really gangbusters on getting these guns off the street. So, and again, when you have less shootings, you have less guns on the street. I mean, that we can all agree on that. So, but the actual number, unfortunately, I don't know how many guns they took off the street so far this year as compared to last year.
Every life lost is a tragedy. I'm curious to know, what are the nature of the homicides that are still happening? Are these domestic disputes? Are these conflicts between our teenage Philadelphians? Are these, issues around gangs and that sort of thing? What's the nature here?
All of the above. But nothing's changed with regard to what the number one cause of homicides and shootings, and that's arguments. Now the question is, what are people arguing over? I mean,
is there retaliation over like another shooting that may have happened or incident that happened? Yeah.
Again, I hate to be vague, but really, it's people enter in the course of human events. People come to disagreements. Sometimes those disagreements become verbal. They become violent. And arguments. People argue. I mean, we just saw, as this recording is being done, we're just we're a day behind a triple shooting in South Philadelphia where 3 women were found dead. Don't know what that was about, but it looks like it's a double murder and suicide. These 3 women, just a few weeks ago, we had a Penn State student who was killed over his cell phone.
Right.
He left a neighborhood bar and he was, someone swiped his phone. He chased after the thieves, and they, instead of just throwing the phone or giving it back to him, they shot him dead. That's inexplicable, but that happens too. We had a pizza delivery man a day before the student was killed, just delivering a pizza to a public housing project, shot to death. I mean, so these things happen, in the big city, and they've always happened. So there's no trend on what's driving the killings that remain. It seems like it's pretty much what it always has been: arguments, disagreements, thievery, jealousies, domestic violence, all of the above.
There was a Pew study last year that found that some of the greatest number of gun violence was happening in North, West, and Southwest Philly. These are neighborhoods that have the lowest median household income, the lowest quality of life indicators, some of the highest concentrations of vacant lots and buildings. If these neighborhoods continue to be experiencing so much violence, What is being done to address these issues?
Well, the neighborhoods where our violence is most pronounced are big surprise the lowest income areas.
Right.
It's the areas that have the highest percentage of people who are underemployed and unemployed and who have the lowest income. Because there's a direct causal link between poverty and violence. And there are many studies that have found this link, historic studies, recent studies, and so what the city is doing, and other cities like us are trying to address the problem of violence is by looking at violence as a part of a systemic problem, and trying to improve education and other factors in the lives of people who are susceptible to being victims or perpetrators. I mean, Philadelphia has a whole panoply of programs that they've stood up just since the pandemic to target this population in these communities. They have something called Group Violence Intervention Juvenile. They have something called Pushing Philly Progress. Some programs, the people come on their own. Some they are recommended or they are sent by the court system. And they get these young people, primarily young people, and they put them in a program to teach them about their problems, try to get them to be more introspective, give them skills on how to, problem solve.
And maybe address some of those conflict resolution things.
Skills,
yeah.
Interpersonal communication skills. They also give them job training. They give them mentors, and these programs have been part of the answer, it would seem, because they've been around now for about 4 or 5 years, and they, as the numbers of shootings have gone down. So you've got to give. It wouldn't be outlandish to give credit to some of these programs that the city has stood up. In my job as a staff writer at the Trace, which is a national news organization that covers gun violence, gun solutions, legislation and related topics, I've been to some of these programs, Pushing Philly Progress, Group Violence Intervention Juvenile, and other programs. And I mean, I every time I go, I would spend it, the afternoon or, several hours kicking the tires, looking under the hood. And the clients, that's who I take it from, not the directors or not the city people, but the clients, the young men primarily, who are in these programs, who have many arrests. The average one's been arrested 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. They're in these streets, and these young guys, and some of the guys are middle aged, and they tell you, "Hey, this program saved my life. I love it. I have a job. I have a job now, or I have I get paid. I have a place to go in the morning. I have direction in my life. I have someone I can call when I need help." And so, the old expression, if it helps one person, it's worth it. Well, these programs are helping people. And so if it's not broke, don't fix it. Maybe you might want to expand it. So as a reporter who's very critical and cynical at times, I find myself being, impressed. I was impressed by these programs because you see these young men, and you know where they could be or where they have been. And so, they're reaching them where they are and giving them things that they never had, and some of that is direction and purpose, and income.
Mensah, I want to let our listeners really understand what it takes to be a writer in this particular field or to have this particular beat. It's pretty intense. As long as CityCast has been around, we've talked about how mothers and grandmothers get caught up and girlfriends get caught up in the legal system because they buy guns and they're trying to protect their family members. We've talked about how during the pandemic, people were buying guns to protect themselves because of the high, violence rates. We talked about how, gas stations, where we fill up our cars, were getting violent, and what business owners were doing, hiring security guards to protect their businesses from violence. And you talk to victims, you're investigating these violence prevention programs. You've seen the numbers. How are you feeling about just the coverage, or how are you feeling about your work? Are you feeling optimistic that these numbers are going down? Or are there areas where you're still skeptical, or you're still, wanting to see if things will change for the better?
Well, violence is what's the word? Cyclical. It's up and then it's down. I mean, I started my career as a night police reporter in Washington, D.C. for a newspaper down there. And that was at the tail end of the crack cocaine era. Crack cocaine hit America, especially the big cities, in the mid 80s and, went into the 90s. And I started in 93 when it was on the tail end of it. And I saw a lot of mayhem and death. And then in Philadelphia at that very time, there were 500 homicides in 1990. And we didn't get that high until 2021, when there was 562. And so I see it come and I see it go, these cycles. And so I am, like I said, I guess, knowing to be giddy about any or depressed about any one time where the cycle is up or down. It is what it is. I mean, right now we are experiencing a downturn in shootings, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And if you're smart, you will look at, why is this? Is it anything that we've done? Should we keep doing it? I think it's a matter of what goes up must come down. I really do. And I know that's cynical, but I just really feel that way, because we are at a time in our country where we don't know what's going to happen at the national political level. With the election of 2028, we don't know what's to happen. We saw just 5 years ago our Capitol being attacked by the supporters of our president, and he didn't go to jail. He went back to the White House. I mean, we are in a situation that we've never been in, and people are under great stress. And when that happens, anything could happen. So, and we saw a run on guns when COVID hit, right? And then we saw the murders, mushroom. So, I mean, you say, am I optimistic? No, but I'm pleased that we see less murders. There was a time where, I mean, I literally could hear gunfire, literally from this place where I'm talking to you from, my home office. Literally outside of my window, 4 people got shot within eyesight of me, and 2 died in March of 2021. And the DA came to the scene. The police commissioner, outlaw at the time, came to the scene. Helicopters were in the sky. And then I saw someone got shot in front of my house. And I live in a pretty safe part of Philadelphia. So yeah, it comes and it goes as far as the crime numbers. But this is a time for people to really take a breath, and also to take stock in what's working and what's not working. And so if they do their homework at the city level and the state level, we'll be able to learn from what's happened in the past, and replicate what works, and not repeat the mistakes.
As you begin to make your itinerary for summer, add Brooklyn Bowl to the list. Brooklyn Bowl is a perfect blend of live music, bowling, beer, and food. It's located in Fishtown, next to the Fillmore. 24 bowling lanes, 2 bars, and a restaurant featuring food from the Blue Ribbon Restaurant Group. It's open Thursday through Saturday evenings with live shows and parties every week. Half-price bowling Thursdays, Family Bowl Saturdays, plus food and drink specials in the restaurant during Phillies games. Go to brooklynbowl.com/Philadelphia to purchase tickets to shows, make a restaurant reservation, or inquire about hosting your next private event on the Brooklyn Bowl lanes. Soccer has taken over Philly, and when the World Cup rolls out, the party doesn't stop, because we have professional soccer right here. The Philadelphia Union returned to play to host rivals Red Bull New York on July 22nd. If you've never seen a match, now's your chance with the first match on us. If you have seen a game, enter today to win VIP tickets to watch Inter Miami take on the Philadelphia Union when Lionel Messi comes to town on August 18th. Register for both at philaunion.co/citycast. Listen, if you're like me and you want to save some cash, check out Arbor. Arbor helps you pay less on your electric bill at no cost. You might not realize the supply part of your Pico bill, the actual electricity, is the part you can change. It's also where rates have been climbing. Arbor is independent. They work for you, not the utility. They secure a better rate plan from vetted suppliers. You keep Pico as your utility, and only your supply changes. There's no cost, no fees. You can cancel anytime. The suppliers pay Arbor, never you. And there's more than 1,300 Philadelphia households who are already using Arbor. So go to joinarbor.com/citycast and sign up. It only takes about 2 minutes. Okay, so we talked about like homicide numbers. What other crimes are happening in the city?
Most major crimes are down. We mentioned homicides and shootings. I mean, shooting victims are down 35% this year compared to the same time last year. The only crimes that are up, according to the Philadelphia Police Department, are rapes. They're up 9% this year compared to the same time last year. And also residential burglaries. They're up just under 1% this year compared to last year. So that's pretty curious. Also up are aggravated assaults, non-gun aggravated assaults, which are up 3%. And then, you know, the other major crimes, and there's about 10 or about a dozen of them, are all down. But those are red flag areas, the rape, the residential burglary, and the aggravated assault, non-gun. So I mean, looking at the numbers, we are a safer city. But, you know, I'm always talking to people. I'm working on a piece right now, and I can tell you, I mean, these numbers mean literally nothing to people whose loved ones are dead, murdered, and there's still no closure. Right. Despite the police clearance rate, that's the term they use for the number of cases they close with an arrest, or the suspect is dead or something. You know, that number is high. It's a good high number. It's higher than it's been ever.
So cases are being solved, or there is some sort of close to the case.
Right. Mm-hmm. The police are saying we have closed it right now. They're saying the clearance rate for homicides is over 80%. You know, 5 years ago it was around 40-something%. So they're doing better. And that's a formula. It's not a head count on how many, you know, well, they get kind of complicated. But if you look at just like, where are my numbers? I just want to give you an example. Go back to 2021, the year where we had the most shootings, the most homicides in Philadelphia history.
That number was 562.
562 homicides. 5-6 years later, how many years later is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 years later, they have closed 263 of those 562 homicides. That's 46.8%. That means that there's over, 53% of the homicides of 2021 are still open.
Right.
They're still open.
And those feelings are still real to victim families.
Yes, they are. And so they use a formula where the clearance rate is the number of resolved cases in a year divided by the number of new cases in that given year. Okay? So they are taking the number of resolved cases from any year, as long as it was resolved in that year, divided by the number of new cases in the same year. So they're taking cases that they closed from 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, If they solve that in 2026, that brings up the clearance rate in 2026. But if you were another way to look at it would be like I just told you, look at a year, a back year, 2020 or say 2021, and how many cases in that year have been solved 5 years later. That gives you a better feel of how many, of how much closure, how much justice is being done. And when you look at 5 years ago in 2021, not less than 50% of the homicides have been solved, even though they'll tell you, and they're right, using their formula, over 80%. They have an 80% clearance rate in 2026. Okay. But if you look back on, say, any given year, 2021, their actual arrest rate, that's not a clearance rate, their arrest rate is only 53%.
So what I hear you describing is sort of two different stories here almost. Yes, the homicide rates are hitting historic lows, but there still are Philadelphians who are not getting closure.
That's absolutely right. I mean, it's...
Then I see elected officials touting one of the narratives, and the narrative is that, Philly's safe.
Well, it's in their best interest to put a smiley face to accentuate the positive, I guess I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, you always want to see the glasses half full. As a journalist, you don't want to drink anyone's Kool-Aid. You don't want to take anyone's bait. You want to be fair. You want to be even-handed, and you want to give both numbers. I'm working on a piece right now in which I will be presenting both numbers: the clearance rate, which is much more positive, and the arrest rate, which is not that bad. I mean, they're still doing great. I mean, if you looked at, just for example, just last year, 2025, they have a 70% arrest rate compared to an 82% clearance rate. So the clearance rate is better, but the arrest rate isn't that bad. I mean, 70% in a big city like Philadelphia, when they used to have an arrest rate of 45%, So, they're two different numbers, looking at very similar things, but just in a different way. I'm not here to say the police are fudging the numbers. They're certainly not. I'm just saying there's just different ways to look at the numbers.
I did want to highlight, and going back to the victims that still have these open wounds, so to speak, these emotional open wounds. When we talk about this stuff, Mensah, are there enough victim support services? And I asked this because there was one that really stood out to me this year. Earlier, the Office of Public Safety had announced that they had a funeral assistance program. And this was to support families to cover funeral costs for homicide victims. And so when I see and hear about programs like that one that I just mentioned, it does seem like, the city, acknowledges that there are needs within our communities.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, that funeral assistance program was started by Mayor Parker's administration to help people with that basic need, that very practical need of burying their loved ones. And I have been on them trying to do a story, and they've been putting me off because they said they're working. It's a new program, and they're kinks and things, and so I'll be writing about that at the Trace at some point this year to see how the program is working. Has the word gotten out to people who need it? Because certainly people do need that program. Also, they had said that if that's Philadelphia is now one of the few places that does that. Cities that help their residents with funeral expenses. So that's a recognition that yes, their homicides are still very prevalent, and that there's still an economic need, financial need for a lot of people. So I think that's worth watching, and I plan to do that.
Mm-hmm. We talked about maybe some of the neighborhoods that see a lot of violence. What Philly neighborhoods have benefited from this wave of safety the most?
Well, I did a piece about this last year, and what we found with that when we looked at all the neighborhoods in Philadelphia, and we also had 10 years of data, is that the neighborhoods that had the highest number of shootings, even with the reduction in shootings, still had the highest number of shootings. We're talking about Strawberry Mansion and Kensington and places such as that. So it's like, these places, instead of having, 100 shootings over a certain period of years, they had like 55, or 45, so, and then everyone else had, instead of 20, 15. So the most dangerous places remain the most dangerous places. There's just less shootings, there's less homicide, there's less shootings, there's less armed robberies.
Which neighborhoods are safer?
I think every neighborhood is benefiting from less shootings, especially in the neighborhoods where there are the most shootings. And if you live in those neighborhoods, I mean, you ask any man or woman on the street, they'll say, yeah, it's pretty rough around here, because, a gunshot is a gunshot. Whether you hear one a week or two or three a week, the brain doesn't process it like, oh, I hear less gunshots,
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I get when I go out and I report. And like I said, I'm working on a story right now in which, the people who have lost loved ones, and they take no comfort in the improved, police, clearance rates, because their loved ones are still dead and there's still no one who's been arrested for them. And those people are disproportionately in these neighborhoods, that have seen the most violence in 10 years ago and, this week, to this year, so that's just a constant problem where places like Philadelphia, where there is, a pronounced level of gun violence, the places that get hit hardest will always be hit hardest.
As we wrap up, we're talking, it's summertime, and it seems like it's always been a sense of anxiety in some ways for residents and even law enforcement and officials, because when there are nicer, warmer days, that seems like when crime upticks. Do you think that trend is still happening in Philly?
It happens every summer. We do get more shootings every summer. And, the city oftentimes will have some type of a press conference where they're going to roll out. They probably have already done it. I just didn't cover it this year, where they roll out all the things they're going to have on tap for young people. Lifeguard jobs, rec center jobs, tutoring jobs, older students, tutoring younger students, all kinds of jobs the city of Philadelphia sponsors, and they also sign up private industry to provide jobs to young people. Obviously, this is a preventative measure to, give young people something positive to do, so they won't be idle and get themselves into trouble, because the summer is the time, most likely that a young guy or a girl will get into trouble because they have no school and less supervision. So, the summer, I've done that story last year, and they always have more shootings. But again, compared to recent years, we just have less shootings. But, compared to the fall and the winter, the summer is going to be the time where you're going to have more trouble.
Mensah Dean, thank you so much, as always, for being here and breaking this all down on CityCast Philly today.
Thank you for having me. Anytime.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. Let us know what you think about these crime numbers, and let us know if you feel safe or not in the city. Send me a text, or you can drop a voice memo at 215-259-8170. And make sure that you're signed up for our morning newsletter so you can stay up on what else Philly's talking about. And don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news and conversations from around the city. Bye.